companies are doing. Not paying overtime correctly is a huge potential liability that small companies have. I know one company who lost about $35,000 one year because they had to pay back wages to someone that should have been paid overtime and they weren't. A lot of companies will go, oh, you know what, let's just make you salaried. You're administrative, we'll call you something, you know, we'll call you the manager, or we'll call you this. And under wage and hour, there's a test, there's a list of things. There's actually, it explains to you, it's the job duties that determines whether someone's an hourly and can get paid overtime, or salaried, or exempt is the technical word. And if they're exempt, they don't get paid overtime. I had a person in payroll that we called the payroll manager at this one company. And then we realized that she really wasn't a payroll manager, so we needed to hire someone as a payroll manager. We hired the payroll manager in, but the old payroll manager that now is a payroll clerk, his job duties did not change. And she came to us and said, I used to put in 40 hours, I was putting in 50, 60 hours a week, and you paid me a salary. But now that I am in this position, you pay me hourly, and I get overtime, but my job duties didn't change. I don't understand. Now, she really did. In fact, she understood so well, she had tracked her time for the last 2 years. She knew when she came in, when she went to lunch, when she came back, when she went home, the time she spent at home working on payroll issues. And she said, my job was no different the last 2 years as it is today, and I'm hourly. And I had told the manager, she's an hourly employee, she should have been an hourly employee, let's hope this goes away, and it didn't. We owed her back overtime for 2 years. If you were a small company, that can be pretty expensive. Another issue I see companies and managers make that's a big no-no is they'll have what's the 1099 contractors. That's what I am. I'm a 1099 contractor. But they're really not. They're really employees. And again, IRS, wage and hour, they have a list of those things that determine whether you're an employee or a contractor. The rule of thumb that I use, if it looks like an employee and it walks like an employee and you treat them like an employee, they're an employee. So if you're telling them you need to work on these days and these hours and you're using our equipment and this is, you can't work for anybody else and you can't come and go as you please, you are probably an employee and not a contractor. So you go, what's the big deal? As an employer, what's the big deal? Paying the back taxes, Social Security. And there was actually a lawsuit that was out about 7 years ago with one of the large, I can't remember if it was Honeywell or Intel, but there was a whole group of engineers that were contractors that went as a group, class action suit. They said no, they really were employees, and they were eligible for back retirement, back benefits, everything. Could be very expensive.
The other thing is unemployment if you lose your job. If you lose your job as a W or 1099, you don't usually get unemployment, but if you're an employee, you do.
You get unemployment, right. So there was all kinds of financial risks that that company took by classifying them as a 1099 contractor instead of as an employee when they really were employed. Now there's some things that both employers and employees don't do well that I think are blunders. Treating coworkers well, treating other employees well, treating employees well, treating managers well. Whether you are the manager or the employer, you should be treating your people well. If you're an employee, you should be treating your other coworkers well. I see more employers lose good people because of the way they treat them, and I see more employees lose their job, not because they're not doing a job, but because they're a pain to work with. They're not nice, they don't play well in the sandbox at work. And they lose their jobs as a result of it. Another blunder I see happening on both sides, the employees and the employers, is understanding that fine line between employee, employer, manager, employee, and friend. More recently, there's been a situation that has come up where there was a manager who has a friend. They see each other outside of work. It's not a husband, it's not a male-female thing. But they're friends outside of work, and because of that, that manager is kind of protecting that employee, and everyone else knows that. So there's a lot of things that this employee is doing incorrectly, wrong. No one will go to the boss to tell them that there's issues because they're friends. And obviously, they're protecting their friend. That manager must be protecting their friend. Having work relationships with peers outside of work is not, in fact, a lot of people do that. It's fun. You like to work with people that you enjoy, and maybe you go golfing with, or you stop and have a drink with, or they go shopping with, or take vacations with, or something. It's nice to have people that you like to work with and have them as friends. Pardon me?
It's a double-edged sword.
Yes, and it can be. But it's really bad if it's the boss and subordinate.
Yeah.
It's really tough if you have a relationship and then that employee goes south. And now you're sitting across from your friend and you're going, I need to fire this person, but they're my friend. How do I do that? Obviously not easy. And so a lot of managers won't, because it's their friend. With employees, I see the blunder employees make is not realizing their boss is the boss. They challenge them, they go around their backs, they go around the corner, they talk about them behind their backs, they sometimes become insubordinate, refuse to do work, and they don't understand that if I work for someone, I do what they want me to, unless it's illegal, immoral, unethical, then that's a whole different thing. But if my boss wants me to have everything on blue paper, it's on blue paper, because they're the person who makes the decision. They're the person who is ultimately responsible for it. And so many employees that I see as a big blunder is they think, no, the way I do it is right, not the way my boss wants it. The way I handle this is the better way, not the way my boss wants it. And challenges. That's a quick way to end your career. I often tell groups, think like a consultant. For those of you who are consultants, you're always thinking, how can I add value to what I do? How can I help? What can I do better? I'm not feeling like I am entitled. And that's the other thing. Employees oftentimes feel they're entitled. And that entitlement can be trouble. I'm entitled for an extra 10 minutes from lunch day, an extra hour and a half at lunch day. I'm entitled to do this. I'm entitled to have this time off. They worked me really hard last night. I can tell you as a consultant, I don't think that way. I think I did a really good job from last night, but I've got to do a good job today too. And I've got to respect what it is that they want. Now, certainly you can ask or talk and try to say, let's do something a little different. Here's some suggestions I have. But ultimately, the boss has the last decision. And employees who go up against their boss, who do you think wins most of the time? The boss, not the employee. For years I've been telling my son, do extra credit. And I see a lot of employees that come into work and they only do the absolute minimum that they have to keep their job. It's a huge blunder. You should always do the most you can. Another blunder that I see employees often make is alignment with the wrong crowd at work. I see a lot of you nodding your heads. Getting involved with the group that's the naysayers. Getting involved with the groups that complain all the time. They have the bitch parties. They're complaining about their bosses, complaining. It's nothing but a downward spiral.